The radio went silent at exactly 2:17 a.m. Lieutenant Aaron Brooks stared at the handset, his thumb still pressed against the transmit button, long after the static had faded into nothing. He tried again. Silence. No reply. No tone. Just the hollow sound of dead air. That's when the cold truth washed over him. No extraction was coming. Brooks lowered the radio slowly, his gaze sweeping over the shattered compound. 8 men remained. 8 out of the original 16. The others were gone, lost to the chaos of the fight. Sergeant Kyle Mercer saw the look on Brooks' face and didn't need to ask. "Say it," he said, his voice low. Brooks just shook his head. "Comms are down." Mercer let out a slow, sharp exhale. "Down or gone?" Brooks didn't answer. He didn't have to. The compound, once a school, was now a cratered maze of broken walls and twisted metal. Moonlight streamed through holes in the roof, illuminating dust and smoke. The air was thick with the smell of gunpowder and blood. Private Lucas Hale sat against a wall, clutching his wounded side. "Are we getting out?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Brooks met his eyes. "We're holding until first light." It was a lie, and they both knew it. Outside, shadows flickered and danced in the darkness. The enemy knew their position and was content to wait. They had the numbers. They had all the time in the world. Mercer crouched beside Brooks. "If no bird's coming, we move." "With what?" Brooks shot back. "Half the squad can't even walk." Mercer's eyes drifted to the wounded men, then back to his lieutenant. "Then we make a stand." Brooks gave a slow, deliberate nod. They scavenged what they could for defenses. Their heavy ammo was gone. All that remained were a handful of rifles, 2 grenades, and a single machine gun with dwindling belts of ammunition. As the night deepened, the first attack came. Sporadic shots, just testing their lines. Brooks returned fire only when absolutely necessary. Ammo was life now. Between bursts of gunfire, Hale forced a grim smile. "Never thought it'd end like this." Mercer, checking his weapon, was resolute. "It's not over." "It sure feels like it is," Hale replied. Another volley of fire ripped through the far wall. One man screamed, then fell silent. Brooks crawled to the machine gun himself. When the enemy rushed, he opened fire, the weapon bucking hard in his grip. Bodies dropped. The attack stalled, but only for now. When the shooting stopped, Brooks noticed his hands were shaking. Mercer leaned in close. "They'll come again." "Harder." Brooks nodded. "Before dawn." He stood and addressed what was left of his squad. "Listen to me. No matter what happens, we hold this position. We don't break." Hale swallowed hard. "And if we're overrun?" Brooks paused, his voice dropping. "Then we make them pay for every single step." Outside, the night closed in, and the silence of the radio confirmed what they already knew. They were on their own. The radio went silent at exactly 2:17. Lieutenant Aaron Brooks stared at the handset, his thumb pressed against the transmit button long after the static faded away. He tried again. Nothing. No reply. No tone. Just the crushing weight of dead air. That was the moment he understood. No extraction was coming. Brooks lowered the radio slowly and looked around the shattered compound. 8 men remained. 8 out of the original 16. The rest were either gone or too badly wounded to move. Sergeant Kyle Mercer noticed the look on Brooks' face immediately. "Say it," he said, his voice low and hard. Brooks shook his head. "Comms are down." Mercer exhaled sharply through his teeth. "Down or gone?" Brooks didn't answer. He didn't have to. The compound had once been a school. Now it was just a cratered maze of broken walls and twisted metal. Cold moonlight filtered through holes in the roof, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. The smell of smoke and blood hung heavy, a grim reminder of the fight they'd just endured. Private Lucas Hale sat against a wall, clutching his side. "Are we getting out?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Brooks met his eyes. "We're holding until first light." It was a lie, and they both knew it. Outside the compound walls, movement flickered. Shadows shifted in the darkness. The enemy had found their position and was in no hurry. They had the numbers. They had the time. Mercer crouched beside Brooks. "If no bird's coming, we move." "With what?" Brooks replied, his voice strained. "Half the squad can't walk." Mercer glanced at the wounded men, then back at Brooks. A silent understanding passed between them. "Then we make a stand." Brooks nodded slowly. They set up what defenses they could. Claymores were gone. Heavy ammo was gone. All that remained was a handful of rifles, 2 grenades, and 1 machine gun with just a few belts of ammunition. As the night deepened, the first probing attack came. Sporadic shots, just testing their resolve. Brooks returned fire only when absolutely necessary. Emma was life now. Another burst of gunfire ripped through the far wall, showering debris. One man screamed. Another fell silent forever. Brooks crawled to the machine gun and took control himself. When the enemy rushed, he opened fire, the weapon bucking hard in his hands. Bodies dropped. The attack stalled. For now, when the shooting stopped, Brooks' hands were shaking. He hadn't even noticed until then. Mercer leaned close. "They'll come again." "Harder." Brooks nodded. Before dawn, he stood and addressed what was left of his squad. "Listen to me. No matter what happens, we hold this position. We don't break." Hale swallowed hard. "And if we're overrun?" Brooks paused, his gaze sweeping over each man. He spoke quietly, but his words carried the weight of a final promise. "Then we make them pay for every single step." Outside, the night closed in, and somewhere beyond the hills, the silence of the radio screamed the truth they all knew. They were on their own. The second attack came just before dawn. It started with silence, so deep it felt deliberate. Lieutenant Aaron Brooks sensed it before the first shot was fired. The night had gone still, as if the hills themselves were holding their breath. "Positions," Brooks whispered. The men moved without speaking. Boots scraped lightly over broken tile. Rifles were raised. Fingers tightened. Then the darkness exploded. Gunfire tore through the compound from 3 sides at once. Tracers cut the air. The wall behind Brooks disintegrated in a spray of dust and concrete. Someone screamed. Someone else fired back blindly. The wall behind Brooks disintegrated in a spray of dust and concrete. Someone screamed. Someone else fired back blindly. Brooks dragged Private Hale behind a collapsed desk as bullets shredded the space where he had been sitting seconds earlier. "Stay down," Brooks shouted. "I can still shoot," Hale said, gritting his teeth through pain. "Then shoot when it counts." The enemy scattered, but not far. "Too fast. They know we're thin," Mercer muttered. "They're testing us." Brooks crawled across the floor, checking each man. Ammo was dangerously low. 1 grenade remained. A young corporal named Evans leaned against the wall, blood soaking his sleeve. "Sir," he said quietly, "if they breach," Brooks met his eyes. "They won't." Evans nodded, even though neither of them believed it completely. The third wave came with shouting. The enemy rushed the east wall, climbing over rubble, firing as they came. Brooks threw the last grenade. The blast lit up the compound, bodies flying back into the dark. For a moment, there was quiet again. Mercer slumped against the machine gun. That was the last belt. Brooks closed his eyes briefly. Dawn crept in slowly, pale light revealing the damage. The compound looked like a graveyard. Smoke rose in thin columns. The wounded groaned softly. Hale laughed suddenly, weak and shaky. Guess they really weren't coming." Brooks knelt beside him. "No, what do we do now?" Brooks looked at the horizon. "No, what do we do now?" Brooks looked at the horizon. The hills were alive with movement. The enemy was regrouping for the final push. "We hold," Brooks said, "as long as we can." The final assault began without warning. They came from everywhere, over walls, through shattered doors, firing, shouting, relentless. Mercer went down first, hit in the chest as he dragged a wounded man to cover. Brooks tried to reach him, but the fire was too heavy. "Go," Mercer shouted. "Don't stop." Brooks didn't stop. One by one, the men fell back to the center of the compound, forming a shrinking circle. Rifles clicked empty. Pistols barked. Then those fell silent too. When Brooks' weapon ran dry, he used the butt as a club. The world narrowed to noise and pain. At some point, the shooting slowed. Brooks found himself on his knees, hands raised, surrounded by enemy fighters. His head rang. His vision blurred. He expected death. Instead, a sudden roar split the air. Jets screamed overhead, low and fast. The ground shook as explosions ripped through the hills surrounding the compound. The enemy scattered in panic. Brooks stared upward, disbelief flooding his chest. Moments later, helicopters appeared through the smoke. Extraction. Late. Costly. But real. As medics rushed in, Brooks collapsed, exhaustion finally taking him. He woke hours later aboard a transport aircraft, bandaged and alive. Only 3 of them made it out. Weeks later, Brooks stood alone at the edge of the base airstrip, watching the sun rise. The report would say extraction was delayed due to weather and airspace conflicts. It would not mention the hours they were abandoned. It would not mention the men who held the line anyway. Brooks adjusted the radio clipped to his vest. It crackled softly, alive again. He turned it off. Some lessons didn't need repeating. And some silences spoke louder than any call for help.